Hello everybody, my name is Raxef, and BlizzCon is literally right around the corner. Today I wanted to talk about my top 5 expectations slash predictions of what I'm hoping to see announced at BlizzCon regarding World of Warcraft. These are things that have been mildly supported based on links, and a couple of these things are just personal opinions that I would want to see brought to the game because I feel like they would add something new, something fresh, and something great for the community. So, with that being said, let's jump into the video. First of all, I hope they bring sub-races or some new kinds of races in the next expansion. Now, we have had some support for this particular theory slash prediction. We had that data mining earlier that showed there were some Nightborn and Void Elves and Lightforged Draenei and High Mountain Tauren that were being put into the game and they weren't there before, and it seemed like that some of their values in terms of data are pertaining to character models that are specifically for player characters and not for NPCs. And even though nothing is really confirmed, I'm really hoping that this means, if not for the next expansion, perhaps the expansion afterwards, we're going to be getting some type of sub-race. And whether it's Nightborn for the Horde or Nightborn on the Alliance, or perhaps they might be some sort of neutral sub-races or neutral races, I personally think that neutral races would be a good thing to bring back to the World of Warcraft. I feel like ultimately when it comes to gaming, you should be able to pick the appearance of your character first off, and then choose which faction you want to support. So if we perhaps had the Nightborn be a neutral race, and then you could choose, well, maybe the Nightborn want to side with the Blood Elves, and they identify a lot with that, or perhaps they are more sympathetic to the Worgen and the humans of the Alliance, so they want to go over to the Alliance. I feel like having a neutral subrace or multiple neutral subraces would be really great. To explore that a little bit further, I think overall character customization will be greatly expanded upon in the next expansion, whether it's being able to add tattoos to all kinds of different races, or having perhaps height options, or more hairstyles, facial hair, piercings for both female and male races. I think overall what is really going to be widely well received by the community will just be a bevy of more and more character customization options, because every time the player models are improved, whether it's by increasing their fidelity or giving players new hairstyles, those changes are oftentimes well received. So I think pushing that even further would be a great move on Blizzard's part. Secondly, I would really like to see guild housing in the next expansion, and honestly, I don't think it's too far off to see that being worked into the World of Warcraft. First of all, in Warlords of Draenor, we had our garrisons, which were ultimately just used by a single person. You know, sometimes we had party members come in there, but for the most part, it was just us. And now in Legion, we have our class order halls, and we spend a lot of time in there as well, but we share that space with other members of our class. So moving forward, perhaps there could be some sort of guild hall or guild ship if we need to be sailing around everywhere, and it would be a gathering place for people in a guild. I think overall, pushing the social option, the massive multiplayer online option for World of Warcraft would be a great move on Blizzard's part. So for those who perhaps aren't in a guild, maybe try to encourage them to be in a guild, or maybe you don't really need to be in a guild to utilize that space, but it can be utilized better if you are in a guild. Perhaps there might be some systems based on the kind of guild you are. So if you primarily do PvP, you can tailor certain traits in order to give you certain PvP bonuses, or if you are a PvE raiding guild, then you can do something that gives you like discounted augment runes or something like that. I don't really know how the finer details of this particular system would work, but I think it's high time for a guild hall system to be added into the World of Warcraft. It's something that I know a lot of players have been asking for quite a long time, and I think that where we are now with the technology that we've seen being implemented, it's not that far of a stretch to expect some kind of guild hall system to be implemented in the World of Warcraft. And ultimately, looking back in Legion, while it was cool that we have these class order halls and we get to see, for instance, if you're a warrior, you get to see all these other warriors walking around you, it doesn't really impact you as the player to see these unknown warriors. You don't really even look at their names while you're around your class order hall. If you had some sort of guild hall, it would be cool to have that sort of central hub, so if you were walking around, you knew that that particular person was in your guild. And of course, this would have a varying effect based on the size of your guild, but you know, if most guilds have anywhere from 40 to 50 players, and assuming you're online around the same time that most of the guild members are online, I think it would be pretty neat to be walking around and you see, oh, hey, there's my friend, there's the healer. You know, of course you have guild chat where you can talk to them, but it also adds something cool to the environment where, oh, that's not just random warrior number 200 that I've seen in my class order hall. That's our healer who's in our guild, and we're all kind of walking around our guild hall doing different things for both our characters and for the guild as a whole. My third desire for future World of Warcraft content would be a return to world PvP, and I'm not really sure what Blizzard can do about this. We've seen a lot of different swings in different ways in terms of world PvP and organized PvP, from battlegrounds to arenas. All I know is that I had the most fun PvPing when I was in an RP PvP realm called Emerald Dream, and we had these huge organized world PvP battles where it was 50 on 50, and we would meet in these random areas and just kind of have at each other. And even though there wasn't really any goal other than hacking away at each other, it was some of the most fun that I had doing PvP. I was in a stream the other night and I saw someone suggest sieges, so there would be kind of organized world quest type events where people would meet outside a capital city and begin some kind of siege on it, and it would be up to the city's inhabitants to repel them, and there would be some kind of winner, and the winner would receive some type of reward. I don't know if that system could ultimately work out, but I think it would be great to have world PvP centralized around areas where we know that players are going to be gathering, whether it's capital cities or just some place of importance, rather than having it centralized around these towers or small areas like we see in the Broken Isles that people really only visit if they need to do the world quests. And other than that, people aren't really heading around there. So I don't really know what direction PvP is going to be taking next. Blizzard is always experimenting with it, but I would like to see some kind of change that pushes world PvP back into somewhat of an actual activity to participate in. Fourthly, I expect Blizzard to continue the system of unlocking skins and appearances for your weapon, as well as perhaps for armor in future expansions. I think the artifact weapon appearances system as a whole has done really, really well in Legion. I love that there were various activities that any kind of player could do in order to unlock appearances, and there was something for almost every kind of player. I think it'd be great to take that system a bit further, perhaps adding even more skins, perhaps even some more hidden skins that didn't require a specific activity like doing a raid or doing X number of battlegrounds or something PvP related. And I think moving further than that, having armor appearances would be really great, because like I mentioned earlier with the sub races and the character customization, people get I find personally that people get a lot of enjoyment out of an MMORPG through the customization of their character. And we already have transmog, but I think moving forward and taking it a step further, having certain kinds of appearances either locked behind some achievements or some secrets that you need to unlock would be really, really fun, and would just take that level of character customization up to the next level, because they did a really, really great job on the weapon appearances so far, and I think it would be great to just expand that even further in further expansions, and even bringing that to armor sets. And lastly, my fifth expectation / prediction is that the next expansion is going to be void or ocean themed in some way. So what that means is that I would love to see us be traveling to the South Seas and traveling to Kul Tiras, particularly to be reintroduced to Jaina. I'm sure a lot has happened to her in the time that she's been absent from Legion. I'm sure Jaina is going to be a huge key character in the next expansion, regardless of what it is. But even more than that, I would like to see us delve further into the old gods and the void gods, particularly since we know that they've just been introduced through the Chronicles, and that just adds a whole new layer to World of Warcraft. So there's obviously a lot going on there. I think first of all, we would need to take on Azshara, who got her powers from N'Zoth. So I think it's a very natural progression, and it's very easy to see how there's some new void energy or void invasion happening on Azeroth, so we got to go back to Azeroth, where we see that there's some activity going on in the ocean, so that will guide us to Queen Azshara, and we need to take her on, and then after beating Azshara, now that paves the way for us to take on N'Zoth, and then once N'Zoth is gone, then that paves the way for us to take on the Void Gods, similar to how taking on Nighthold led us nicely into the Tomb of Sargeras. I think it'll work in a similar fashion, but really back on Azeroth. Overall, I would just love to see us have another return to Azeroth with some new systems, and have it primarily just be Void God, Old God based, just because I really, really like that part of the World of Warcraft lore, and obviously a huge foundation has been laid with that in mind. And we also have some things going on with Sylvanas and Gen Greymane. Obviously, there's a whole bunch of speculation in terms of what direction could Sylvanas go in. Will she be for the Horde, or will she be splintering away from the Horde and just focusing on her own people? And what exactly does that mean? Will Sylvanas be a protagonist, or will she be an antagonist? There's a lot that could happen there, and I don't really have one expectation leaning one way or the other. But overall, I just know that I would really, really like the next expansion to be Void God / Old God themed, and for it to include the ocean in some kind, because I think that would just give a new breath of fresh air into the environment of Azeroth that we haven't explored a ton before. We did a little bit back in Cataclysm, but I would like to see it so much more, particularly in the areas of Kul Tiras and the South Seas. And that's going to do it for today's video. What did you think of my top 5 predictions? Are they things that you would want to see in World of Warcraft in the future, or perhaps you have some other ideas? I know in my last video someone mentioned a Tinker class. Personally, I don't think that's too viable, because we did just have a new class, the Demon Hunter, come in Legion, so maybe in a future expansion we could see a Tinker, but I don't think anything new is going to be done class-wise for this BlizzCon, for the next expansion. But maybe Blizzard's going to surprise us. But either way, let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. If you like this video, then of course give it a thumbs up. And if you like my channel and you want to keep up to date with the type of content that I'm posting, then of course feel free to subscribe. With that being said, I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. See you later!